NSFW, what's the worst pain you've ever experienced? Having 4 ribs surgically broken, and then having to lean directly against a solid slab for a chest X-ray the next day. It was honestly excruciating. If you don't mind me asking, why were your ribs surgically broken? Don't suck itself. When I was 11 years old, I was at Boy Scout camp and one of the kids was messing around with camp fuel near a fire. His cup of fuel caught fire. He threw the cup behind him, onto my legs. So I'd say 3rd-degree burns on my inner thighs would be way up there. Good thing I had underwear on. They had to graft skin from the outside of my thighs to the inside. That wasn't painless post-surgery either. Not sure exactly what happened, but I had this tooth pain on an airplane that had me prepared to jump out the window. You have an abscess. The pressure shift is what drove you mad. Go get X-rayed at your dentist. 100% this. Worst pain I've ever had was a tooth abscess. Infection in the root that just has nowhere to go, so the pressure builds and builds until you get unbearable pain that you cannot get to. If you stub your toe really hard it hurts, but you can kind of mentally deal with the pain by grabbing your foot and holding the toe or rubbing it. Tooth pain is just deep inside a hard shell that you cannot reach. I was literally writhing around, groaning out loud as a grown man on my bed, unable to even answer my wife. I thought that sort of pain reaction was only something from movies. I was rushing to cut through a loaf of bread. It was one of those bakery loaves with the thick smooth crust. And when I applied too much force too quickly, the serrated knife slid right off the top and onto the side of my outstretched finger. The blade cut halfway through the bone and stopped. I then attempted to remove it, but I accidentally twisted the blade as I did so, and it slightly pried the 2 sides of my finger bone apart. The pain was so bad that I immediately threw up onto what would have been a very nice loaf of bread. I'm actually getting quite nauseated recounting this. A very large bowel movement with an fissure. The pain could best be described as having a thumb covered with hundreds of needles jammed into my. I had an fissure before. It's like pooping a metal cactus and all the spikes are facing one direction and you're pooping against the spikes. Kidney stones. I thought my appendix had ruptured and I was on the floor of the hospital screaming as an adult male. I remember they gave me morphine which knocked me out, but I could still feel the pain in my sleep. I gave up soda after them. I had open heart surgery when I was in high school. Unfortunately, I ended up with pericardial effusion, effectively a buildup of fluid around the heart, whilst recovering about a month afterwards. I wasn't aware of this until I started to suffer cardiac tamponade, so much blood that the heart starts to struggle under the literal pressure, which had me vomiting and kind of phasing in and out of consciousness. So, obviously straight to emergency department. They numb me and space me out, but they didn't sleep me. A surgeon then inserted a pigtail device through my chest. This is basically a plastic tube with a curly end. It goes in with a rod in it. Then when it's placed, the rod is removed and the end curls, keeping it in place. This was inserted into the pericardial sac to drain fluid. None of this was too painful, even the little semi-conscious surgery. About a week later, I had surrendered enough black heart goo that it was ready to come out. I have never experienced anything quite like that thing coming out. The incision it had gone through was tight and a fair bit of blood and so on had dried around it. The nurse started to pull. It honestly felt as if someone had put a screw into my chest, right in deep. Grabbed the head with some pliers and started going at it. I have never made sounds like I did that day. Not before, not after. There was what felt like hours of her pulling and tugging until another nurse walked in, pushed her out of the way, gave it a huge violent twist resulting in an audible crack, then whipped it out in one smooth motion. I think that's the worst and the most relieved I've ever felt in my life, all within a couple of minutes. When I played flag football in 8th grade, a gigantic kid tackled me and then stomped on my wrist with his cleats. That shattered my 12-year-old wrist, which I didn't know was possible, but there I was. The pain was quick to develop and then overbearing. My arm burned as though it were on fire and my hand was throbbing. My father didn't believe that it was broken, so he tapped it with his fingers. I nearly passed out from the pain and the feeling of things shifting in my wrist. After doing that and seeing my contorted and sobbing little face, he rushed me off to the hospital. The pain I felt was immeasurable and my day was ruined. I hope the kid who stomped on your wrist in clear got some sort of discipline. He did not. The coaches just played it off as a normal sports injury and as if nothing bad happened. Corneal ulcers. I could feel the insides of my eyes grinding when they adjusted to light. Always take out your contacts at night to clean them, and check when you should replace them. I passed out from pain due to heartburn, ice cream headache and water going down the wrong pipe, and it paled in comparison to the ulcers. I had surgery to remove a pilonidal abscess. The abscess itself was pretty damn painful, but worse than that was the following day. At the time, the accepted treatment after surgery was to pack them with gauze and change it daily so it could heal from the inside out. Day after surgery, the doctor comes to take a look, grabs one end of the gauze and basically rips it out quickly in one go. I should probably also mention I'd not been given any pain medication that morning. I nearly swore the whole ward down. One day when I was in 7th grade, I woke up and noticed a pea-sized pus pocket had formed on my. So I told my parents and they took me to the doctor. The doctor squeezed it until it popped. If you've ever tried to pop a zit that wasn't ready to pop, imagine that, but worse in every possible way. Cluster headaches. Like a migraine times 10. They are also known as headaches. The worst pain I have ever felt. I do not wish them on even my worst enemy. I have muscles in my lower back that sometimes get inflamed, irritated and tense up. It's so painful that at its worst, I debated myself in bed rather than make the 30-minute trip to the bathroom that's right beside my bedroom. After having brain surgery removing a benign tumor from my brain, I couldn't sleep for about 5 days after. The 5th day I was experiencing a level of exhaustion that will probably be the worst pain I've felt in my life. I was pumped up on pain suppressant meds, so I couldn't exactly feel your classic sense of pain, other than a strong pulsing sensation in the back of my head where my tumor was removed. Rather, it took form in feeling just utterly dull inside. Imagine being so tired that you don't even have the energy to think about being tired. It's like you're stuck in a vacuum and there is no way out but to sit quietly and wish for it to be over. Bulging disc pressing up against my sciatic nerve. I was in labor over 48 hours. Pushed for a little over 2, and had a C-section where the spinal block didn't completely work, so I could feel them cutting and, ultimately, cauterizing. But, I'm going to have to say, shingles. I was in the hospital for weeks. If you touched my hand, nowhere near the actual bumps. Every nerve in my body screamed in pain. Wearing clothes hurt. I had it so bad I still have nerve damage. I hope you never have to experience it. Gallbladder attack. Woke me up from a sleep and I was in the ER within 20 minutes. While waiting to get admitted, I basically curled up into a ball and lay on the floor. Someone finally noticed how bad off I was and let me cut in front of the dozens ahead waiting. It took 2 back-to-back rounds of pain meds to get it under control. A few hours later, I was in surgery to have my gallbladder removed. I've had my knee fracture and dislocate behind my leg. I've had kidney stones and I've been through spinal surgery. Nothing compared to that gallbladder attack. Complete hell on earth. Perirectal abscess. It had grown immensely huge and stayed there for about a month before bursting. My lower half basically shut down during the time because the pain was so horrible. Getting out of bed took hours. I remember trying to get out of the bathtub once by sitting up first, and it was so painful that I slipped, hit my head against the bathtub, and screamed loud enough to wake the dead. It's a surreal experience to hear yourself scream, but not feel it in your throat. After it burst, my flesh had rotted away, leaving a hole in my that was at least an inch deep. I could feel my bone. Then came sepsis. It's weird to feel your blood hurt. It felt like a snake had bitten me, that there was venom in my blood everywhere. Still, my parents had forced me to attend school with the injury. I was trying to get to class when I just fell down in the hallway, unable to move. After the surgery, I couldn't walk without a cane for 7 months. Broke my femur, which tore through my quadricep. Didn't hurt initially. But the second I got put on the stretcher and they had to straighten it out, I immediately was overwhelmed. Runner-ups go to tumors on my balls and the subsequent removal. 3 tumors over a 6-year period, eventually leading to a left-side orchiectomy. I've broken a lot of bones and torn quite a few ligaments. But those by far take the cake. Abscess tooth. Pain was so bad I got the root canal with no Novocaine. Why couldn't they use Novocaine? Bacteria can essentially block the anesthetic from working fully or at all.